No, so typically with like these shows and whatnot, like we like to start off with a little bit of banter, but nothing too crazy, of course, and getting us all warmed up, and then we go into a little intro. But I don't know if you've actually had a chance to meet Mike next to me. This is Mike.
I haven't.
Mike, this is John.
Oh, what's up, John?
Mike actually was in-season co-host with me. He did all the show sheets and everything for in-season stuff and really helped us like kick off this brand. Without Mike, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this. So yeah, he's one of my best friends in the business and of course, outside as well. But it's been a pleasure. How'd you get involved with 444?
I was working for a sports blog called The Scores Report, which I think people can still pull up. And I was just covering sports stories, kind of like kind of a pithy blog type thing, Deadspin type of a feel. And I started dispensing fantasy advice there, and I started doing rankings, and I found the Fantasy Pros accuracy contest, and I entered it in 2010, and I managed to win it. And then that's when I got on Josh Moore's radar. He's the owner at 444. He and I started chatting. He was still doing all the rank. He was doing everything at the site. It was a one-man show at 444, and he was looking to hire somebody to lighten his load. And so I think he was on the lookout for somebody that knew how to, rank players and project and all that. So I did one more year. I think I went off on my own for 1 year at Fantasy Shrink, 2011, and then Josh hired me, I think, in 2012, and I took over the rankings there. And so I've been there since, for 8 years, 9 years now. It's a great partnership.
And been dominating ever since, pretty much, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't say dominate. But.
Oh, it's fun to watch. It's really fun to watch. I was diving into your rankings the other day, and it was just really cool. All right, ready to kick this one off?
Sure.
Let's do it.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
Oh, man, and you get a treat tonight. You get a treat tonight because guess what? Mike is back. He's back in the house with me. You guys know Mike, my in-season co-host. And, of course, we have a special guest tonight, John Paulsen from 444. What's going on, John? How you doing tonight?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, very excited to talk with you. Obviously, this guy has been, I guess, one of the leaders in this industry, of course. He crushes the rankings, finished, top two? Or I'm sorry, you finished in the top ranker, top expert ranker twice. And then you finished top 6 and 9 out of the past 11 expert rankings for Fantasy Pros, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, absolutely love that, John. You want to give us a little bit of insight as to where we can find you, what kind of work you do, where we can find your work.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is 444_John, and that's the number 4, FOR, the number 4. I didn't name the site, but that's what we're dealing with. It's easier. Once you see it, you realize how it's spelled. That's where I work as well, 444.com. You can find my work there. I do have a Instagram as well. That's just kind of starting up. Same handle, 444_John. And I'm the co-host and frequent guest on the Most Accurate podcast, which you can find on Spotify and iTunes and all the, everywhere you could find your podcast. We've been around quite a while, broadcasting podcasts there as well.
No, I love that. And I love your, pounding the table, right? Your pounding the table subject you start out every episode with.
That's Brandon Niles took over the hosting for this off season, and he started implementing some some different segments, and that's the one people come on immediately pound the table for somebody. So I did the last episode I did. It was Curtis Samuel.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, no, it's exciting. It's something really fun to listen to. I tune in every show I possibly can. Make sure you guys go check it out. It's one of my sources to get a lot of my information. And of course, Mike, what's going on, man?
Oh man, I thought I was on vacation, and somehow I'm doing 3 days in a row now. I did free agents yesterday, coming on with you studs today, and then I think I have some offensive lineman podcast tomorrow. So we're kind of all over the place. So it was supposed to be a nice little 5-month break, but couldn't pass up a chance to hang out with you guys tonight and talk free agents. So happy to be here, man.
No, I'm happy that you are here, man. We needed to rebuild this chemistry up. I mean, I keep on seeing us putting out the same exact stats almost, or the same exact information. But yeah, we're not planning on doing it at all. So I was like, man, we need this chemistry flowing again. Get you back on the show for, just for a week, maybe 2. Who knows?
What, did you tweet out about Air Bud and Rondell Moore as a child wearing a helmet too, or is that just me?
No, that one was just you. That one was amazing.
I wasn't certain how much chemistry we had.
Oh, no. But the Dave Montgomery tweets are hilarious. So
yeah, sorry about those.
So when it comes to everything that we have going on with free agency and whatnot, I know a lot of shows are covering free agency. I know a lot of people are talking and saying almost the same exact stuff or giving difference of opinion. I still, for those who aren't aware, want to give everybody a chance to explore, I guess, what's going on with free agency and know what's going on. But we're not going to spend too much time on that. I actually want to spend more time on the things that people are not talking about. So we're going to start it out with wide receivers this time. Normally, I try to stick in order, right? We try to do quarterbacks, running backs, but I'm too excited. There's too much going on with the wide receiver room. I want to know what John has to think. Of course, I want to know what Mike has to think as well, although I'm pretty sure we're synced up at this point. But when we talk about the fits, right, and who increased their value, I want to sit there and I want to talk about Golladay to the New York Giants, Florida, Miami, Aguilar to New England, Juju to Pittsburgh, Corey Davis to the Jets, Samuel to Washington, T.Y. Hilton to Indianapolis. Now, we'll start out with John. Is there any one of these where their value just shot through the roof compared to their last spot?
I wouldn't say shot through the roof, but the guy that jumps out to me is Curtis Samuel going to Washington. With Robbie Anderson coming into Carolina last year, we were a little concerned about Samuel's role. He ended up having a pretty significant role because they basically ignored Ian Thomas at the tight end position. McCaffrey got injured, so a lot of his receptions went to Mike Davis or went to the receivers. And Robbie had a good year. DJ Moore had an okay year. We were kind of expecting more, but Samuel, I think, outperformed expectations. And he also had a role as a runner. They quite frequently gave him the ball in that from the 10 to 15 yard area in the mid red zone, and asked him to make a couple people miss and try to score a touchdown. Now he's headed to Washington, where he's got a quarterback who's not afraid to just cut it loose and let his receivers make plays. He's going to have plenty of opportunity to make plays on Ryan Fitzpatrick's passes. And he's being reunited with, Ron Rivera, Scott Turner, the offensive coordinator there. They both were at Carolina before, so he should hit the ground running. They went out and got him for a reason, and I think he's going to be that number 2 option to Terry McLaurin. Logan Thomas is there as well, but Samuel should see an increase in his overall workload and the number of snaps he's playing. And if they get him involved as a runner as well, then I think he has wide receiver 2 type upside for the year.
Mike, are you on board with this? Is this what you're thinking too?
I'm not actually. I'm a little nervous about the landing spot, and the reason for it is because you already have a wide receiver in the backfield, and Antonio Gibson. You have J.D. McKissick, who has proven to be a pass catching back, and I do worry about Logan Thomas still taking a portion of it. I think.
Wait, you're worried about Logan Thomas?
Not my guy.
I'm clipping this out.
I know. But my theory is that I think that Curtis Samuel going to Washington is great for Washington. I love it as an NFL move. I am a little nervous about it for fantasy because, to John's point, to reach that ceiling you're looking for, you want to see him getting work out of the backfield. And just given the skill sets of the runners that they have, I'm more worried about looking at his 2019 usage when you had a healthy McCaffrey. and where he wasn't getting a ton of looks out of that backfield. And I'm actually worried about it being Rivera and Scott Turner, because what I remember very clearly is when he was with that group, everyone that was a Curtis Samuel truther that I was hearing was saying, let's free him to people that are going to use him properly, that are going to really get him to reach his ceiling. So going back to that group, I'm wondering if it might be a hindrance. He's a guy that honestly, and John obviously being great at what he does, a lot of people smarter than me love this guy. I just, at least in my head, I'm going more towards traditional wide receivers that I can get in that range over, let's say, a Curtis Samuel. For example, I'm not even certain that I would take Curtis Samuel right now over Aguilar when we talk about this list, hoping that New England actually gets a quarterback. I don't think it's going to be Cam Newton. But I think if they get a capable quarterback, I might lean more towards the target share that I think Aguilar is going to see, as opposed to taking a risk on a Curtis Samuel being used properly. I think if they exploit him properly, he's a big play. I just don't know if they will, given both the coaching staff and the personnel they have on that team currently.
Yeah, that's interesting. So in the chat, I want to see what y'all are thinking as well. What do you guys think about Curtis Samuel? You're on board? Are you not on board? Very interested to hear that. But no, the biggest thing that I'm looking at is I'm hoping that they don't move him back to like an outside deep threat role where he's going to see a ton of, air yards essentially, and he can't get underneath it. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. However, it's shown that Ryan Fitzpatrick, compared to every other quarterback that he's played with at the time, including Jameis Winston, has made every single wide receiver more efficient since 2015 outside of Robbie Anderson. So I think that efficiency, like John was talking about, could end up increasing that workload. My concern, though, is that they try and use him as more of a stretch target, but they already have Terry McLaurin for that. So I'm not as concerned. I really, truly think that Curtis Samuel could be a mainstay and somebody that you could rely on, week to week. So
if I could I'd just like to add one other thing. J.D. McKissick had 110 targets last year, 80 catches.
That's insane.
I don't think that was what they were hoping for. I mean, they ended up using him more in that. And I could definitely see Samuel being a much better J.D. McKissick, in that role. I mean, he rushed the ball 85 times and had 80 catches. And your point about Antonio Gibson is taken, but I think that maybe they envision him as that replacing McKissick in the offense, and maybe using McKissick half as much as they did. And then they also have a real wide receiver out there who can absorb another 40, 50 targets elsewhere.
Oh, and I think if that were to happen, John, I'm definitely with you. Like if J.D. McKissick for some reason wasn't on the roster come week one, or there was some kind of assurances, it's just me being risk averse. That is a question mark. I'm not saying it's a certainty it won't happen. It just is a question mark for me, because when I looked at those 110 targets, my feeling was they were trying to get Gibson used to being a running back because he's a capable receiver. Obviously, they knew he could do that. So I saw Gibson taking a lot of that cut. I do think McKissick goes down. I think we're fully in agreement there. I guess I saw Gibson getting those targets where you're seeing Samuel getting them. And both of us, whichever one is right, will cause a big swing for either of those players, how that ends up playing out, I think.
Big shout out to Hollywood Titan in the chat. We got Dynasty Rich in the chat. We got the Point After in the chat. Thanks for coming to support, guys. We love it. But I know you guys are coming here for John, not me. So, John, is there a player that I guess decreased their value the most by their landing spot when it comes to the wide receiver position? Once again, we talk about – oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say the most. The guy that jumped out was Samuel as being his value going up the most. I think the rest of these guys all either kind of stayed the same or going down. I mean, Galladay going from Matthew Stafford in a role that is established. He's going to, Daniel Jones. He's got Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, Darius Slayton. Now they got Kyle Rudolph as well. Saquon Barkley's a pass-catching running back. I'm worried about Galladay. I think that it's actually great for Daniel Jones. I mean, that makes sense. But for Galladay's value, I'm thinking maybe 5th round, 6th round for him now. Fuller going from Deshaun Watson to Tua.
Oh, God, it's so painful.
It's it's not great. Aguilar is interesting in a way, but I think he was the number one wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders last year. And he's going kind of a lateral move to New England with a quarterback that doesn't throw the ball as much or as accurately as Derek Carr was. And Derek Carr was actually pretty good last year. Juju to Pittsburgh, obviously, hurts Claypool and Deontay Johnson. And it's just sort of the same. We don't know who to rank highest each week with those three. And then Davis to the Jets. I mean, he just obviously was like, I'm going to take the money. And I don't really care. I don't know who my quarterback's going to be.
He believes it's going to be Sam Darnold. That's what he thought.
Is that what he believes?
That's what he said.
It's just the Tennessee passing game, hyper efficient. And he saw 92 targets there and turned that into a fantasy starter type season. And I think you're heading to the Jets. You've got Crowder. You've got Denzel Mims, Keelan Cole. They added him. Don't forget about Chris Herndon. There's going to be some competition there. And I just don't know that he's going to get the quality of targets that he got from Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee.
And you know what's the crazy part? And people don't realize this about Cam Newton. Yeah, he doesn't throw the ball deep a lot, but that's because he had Damiere Byrd. And every time he threw the ball to Damiere Byrd, it was like hitting like stone hands. I'll never forget like 4 or 5 drops that Damiere Byrd had where he was just wide open. And it hit his hands and just fell to the ground. I was like, those hands are supposed to catch.
Well, that's the other thing. Are all these moves for New England a sign that they want to throw the ball a lot more? Because they did add Bourne, they did add Aguilar, they did add 2 tight ends that are pass-catching tight ends. Are they saying we're going to throw the ball a lot more than we did last year? We just didn't have anybody to throw to last year. They lost Edelman early, and they just didn't have a whole lot at receiver. Maybe that's their sign, and they're going to actually open up the offense a little bit more this year.
Well, Cam Newton actually had the 4th best deep ball completion percentage in the entire league last year. So although he's not accurate overall, he was actually really accurate with the deep ball, even with the receiver who dropped it constantly. So I'm very interested to see what a receiver can actually catch, although he hasn't been able to in the past. If this is another Damiere Byrd 2.0, or if Nelson Aguilar can actually do something with the rock outside of 1 year.
Well, that's why Aguilar killed it with Vegas. It was the go route that if Matt Harmon did the receptive perception on him, it's the deep ball that they opened up for him.
He actually came on the show 2 weeks ago. We talked about that. So, he crushed it. So he could absolutely crush with the Patriots as well. Once again, something to watch moving forward. So which one of these receivers that I have on the list when it comes to Galladay, Fuller, Aguilar, Juju, Davis, Samuel, and Hilton, which one of these will be drafted the highest in startups? And which one are you going to be ranking the highest in startups?
I don't do dynasty rankings, so this is a little bit of a different. I don't value these guys based on age and how much time is ahead of them. I just look at this season.
Let's go 3 draft.
And I think right now I could pull up my rankings. I mean, I think just looking at it, it would have to be Galladay, but Juju. No, I have Juju at 27, Galladay at 28, Samuel at 29. So those 3 are all really close. Fuller at 31 as well. So, I mean, I think Fuller, I've got him right by Beckham and DJ Chark and Tyler Boyd. So that's debatable right now. So I think that's where I have it right now. I think Davis is lower. Aguilar is lower based on their quarterback situations.
Mike, what's your take on that?
So I think Galladay will go first. I think that realistically he might deserve to go first, but not by a lot. To give you an idea of where I see him value-wise, I actually just traded him about 2 hours ago for Jerry Jeudy and a low second, and I was thrilled to get that. I think Jeudy is a more talented player, and I think if Drew Lock is replaced by a quarterback who can throw, I think Judy's going to explode. I think Galladay, realistically, when I look at this list, Galladay and Juju, especially when you're talking in Dynasty, are really the only 2 that you see people clamoring for, that you see people looking in that wide receiver 2 range. They come in usually about 17 to 20 in the rankings. I think what's most concerning for me with Galladay, obviously, is the offense he's going to, but I do think the target share is going to be there. But Juju, I think, is probably going to be the one I'm going to rank highest now that he's gone back. And the reason for that is the second half of the year. When you looked at what happened in the second half of the year, Juju took off. I think he had 17 targets in the playoff games. He only had like 2 games where he had under 8 targets in that second half. So they started going back to Juju as the de facto number 1, whether that was because of the drops by Deontay, whether that was because teams were getting wise to Claypool. I think Juju regained that number 1 spot. He's someone I'm actually, out of all of these guys, is most comfortable with. Now, the wild card for me is Aguilar. And the reason for it is I love all the stats you gave about Cam Newton. Cam Newton is not going to be the starting quarterback for the Patriots. I just don't see that happening. Like John said, they're building an offense where they're going to throw the ball, whether that's Garoppolo, whether that's Trey Lance, whether that's Justin Fields. I think you're going to see somebody different under center in New England. And I think if that's the case, Aguilar is the only one that they signed that's going to go downfield. It's not going to be Kendrick Bourne. It's not going to be either of the tight ends. What they're going to do is just take up people's perception. They're going to take the safety. They're going to pull someone forward. I think Aguilar's going to have some open space, and I love the option. If he gets a quarterback, I think Aguilar could do really big things in New England. I think he'd be huge. But Juju's the one I'm taking highest overall of this group right now, followed very closely by Golladay until I see a change of quarterback in New England.
I'm very interested to see what Juju does, because I've never seen a receiver have 97 receptions for 830 yards. That's just mind-blowing to me. Like, that's like running back numbers, if that. I mean, that's brutal. So I hated that Juju went back there. I wanted Juju to go to Green Bay or Juju to go to Washington, and obviously that didn't happen. But, hey, it is what it is. We still have some of these free agents that haven't had landing spots yet. You know, we talk about Antonio Brown, Sammy Watkins, Golden Tate. Is there anybody that could land in a certain situation that's left over where it gets you like super excited? Like you're like, yes, I'm going to be drafting this guy if he lands in this situation.
For me, I think Antonio Brown is still a talented receiver. I think there's so much off-field baggage that more than half of the teams have just written him off, or even more. I mean, I don't know if there's what his market is like, other than the Bucks who are willing to sell their souls for another Super Bowl. But he was one of my favorite receivers to watch play. He's obviously one of the greatest of all time, and until he's like the implosion off field and all the craziness. So if my Packers signed him, I would talk myself into it. But I think from a talent standpoint, a fit standpoint, it'd be great. But they just are not an organization that takes risks on bad apples. Even if they've been good for a year. But I think from a talent standpoint, he's the cream of the crop that's left, as far as I can see with the people that are still out there. He's older, but he can still be really effective.
Mike, you in the same boat with this one?
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think that he's going back to Tampa. I think that Brady's the only one who can keep this guy under control. Like John said, how many teams have written him off? I'd be shocked if it's not more than half. So I'm definitely with you there, and I think there's no chance he goes to Green Bay, as much as we would love it. I think what killed Antonio Brown's value was them franchising Chris Godwin. I think the only way we opened up those two to really reach their potential was Godwin going somewhere like, say, Indianapolis, and then Antonio Brown taking the number 2 role in Tampa. Once Godwin was franchised, True. Brown becomes hit or miss. Godwin's ceiling's capped. Evans' ceiling's capped. It just really hurt that trio of wide receivers across the board, him going back. So once that happened, I was off of Antonio Brown as even in redraft, except for a nice end of the bench, fourth, fifth wide receiver. I don't want to have to rely on him week to week. I think he's going to be spotty, but I would be shocked if he's anywhere other than Tampa Bay with Tom Brady next year.
It's interesting that he hasn't signed yet, though. I mean, they've pretty much gotten everybody back, and Antonio Brown's still sitting out there. I don't know what's going on.
Doesn't Russell Wilson want him? I think the reports today that came out that Russell Wilson wants him on the team.
In Seattle?
Yeah.
I mean, even if he did, though, that would be the same, if not worse, than Tampa. You'd have
have 3 deep wide receivers now.
Yeah. So the other thing I'll say,
that would drive me insane.
With John's point of him not signing yet, they did just re-sign Sue. I think it was this morning, if I'm not mistaken. So yes. What I'm almost wondering is they're getting all their ducks in order to see how to structure the contract, more so than they're jettisoning him out. I'm not overly concerned he hasn't signed there yet, because they're doing a lot of moves. Signed the linebackers, they signed Sue. So I'm just wondering if it's like, hey, we're going to bring you back. We just have to figure out how we're going to structure the contract to fit under the cap. Because like I said, they're selling their soul. They're selling their cap space. They're selling everything to win in 2021. And then the whole thing's probably going to explode. So I just think they're going to try to bring the entire band back if they can.
Yeah, they probably look at his market and feel like they could wait and sign him last.
Yeah, no risk. So they can offer him what they have left, and he's going to kind of have to take it, I think.
So I don't want to sit there and go back to Juju for too long, but Taylor did ask a question. Did the run game, right, the non-existent run game, that was pretty much why Juju benefited from getting the amount of targets that he did. because they couldn't run the ball. So any kind of short situations, they just dumped it off to him. So if we sit there and we look at their run situation, if they go and draft a Najee Harris or Travis Etienne or somebody along those lines, do you think that he will still get the same workload that he saw from this previous year?
Well, I haven't looked at the Steelers signings on the offensive line, but that was an issue as well in terms of running the ball. That's something I look at a little bit later in the offseason. They had James Conner. He was kind of banged up. I'm sure if they drafted a running back in the first or second round, it'll be an improvement on what he was offering. I think Taylor's point is taken, that they were using him as an extension of that running game, and they were just not functional very, very well running the ball and needed to move the ball any way they could. And he's good at getting open in short spaces. So, that makes some sense. Now, if they do get the running game going, that could just mean his volume goes down. And, he's splitting now the downfield work with the other two receivers, and it just, and Ebron. And it's not great for anybody.
It's my least favorite sign of the entire offseason. I was really disappointed. All right, so I know on the show sheet we have quarterbacks next, but this is perfect time to transition over to the running backs. And I'm not trying to kill the vibes. I'm not trying to crush your emotions or anything. I know you're a big Kenyan Drake fan, and he went to the Raiders. You're a Kenyan Drake fan, right? From the shows that I've listened to.
I always tweet out the Jerry Maguire with the goldfish, who's coming with me, when I talk about Drake, because I always feel like I'm swimming upstream. I'm trying to convince people, get people on board with Kenyan Drake. And, when he hit in Arizona after the trade, it was great. I was riding high. And then headed into last year, everything was going, I think, pretty well. And then he has this weird ankle injury prior to week 1. And honestly, when I watched him run, it just didn't look like the Kenyan Drake that I had been used to seeing over the last 3 or 4 years in Miami and in Arizona to close out the 2019 season. So I don't know where he's at health-wise when he's heading now to Vegas. And from a usage standpoint, this is terrible for Josh Jacobs. It's terrible for Drake, who probably could start still, but maybe isn't a starter caliber given what we saw last year. So no, I don't like this. I don't like the signing, from a fantasy standpoint. It just muddies up the water. And then also the Raiders offensive line is looking like a complete disaster. So this is a situation I'm probably staying, way away from. And I won't have as many, shares of Drake on my teams as I've had in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate for what happened with him. But I wonder what, like in Arizona, if it was more of coaching or if it was more of the ankle injury, because we heard Cliff Kingsbury say, we need to have a guy that runs between the tackles. We need to have a guy that runs between the tackles. Like, that's what he wanted. So do you think that had anything to do with coaching, him trying to, push Kenyan Drake up the middle? Or purely on the injury?
Yeah, I think it looked like he was running between the tackles the most. I don't know if he had the speed to get outside, though. He just looked to me like he was running a little bit in mud. And maybe we could look at the next gen stats and see if he hit any, speeds. They don't really tell you as much as you'd like to see when you go to NFL.com and look at those stats. Like, there's things I'd like to see. All they show you is fastest ball carriers this week, and it's like, well, this is not that as useful as I'd like it to be.
Dude, it's it's like the ideal of what you want, but it's not there. It's like I want to know this so bad, but it's not.
Like how I want to be able to search Kenyan Drake and see the fastest that he ran and when it was. And you can't access that information as proprietary or whatever. It just, from the eyeball test, it didn't look great. They were using, and they didn't use him in the passing game much. A little bit here and there, but it was mostly Chase Edmonds as a receiver. And now the Raiders are saying that they're going to use him as the primary pass catcher. So he's going to take over the Booker, Jalen Richard role, apparently. And then Jacobs, whatever upside he had as a receiver, is probably gone. And it's just kind of a mess.
Mike, how are you feeling about this?
So, I'm not a Jacobs guy, never have been. He's just not the type of running back that I ever roster. As John politely put it, the whatever upside he had in the passing game, which was none, is now gone. And I think what scares me most for Jacobs is, you're right, I didn't see a lot of speed from Kenyan Drake. What I did see, though, was efficiency at the goal line. Kenyan Drake scored last year a lot. When they gave him the ball up close, he put it in. He was bankable. as a goal line back. And that scares me for Josh Jacobs, because the fact is, if you're catching 75% of your passes, which equates to 25 catches with Devontae Booker there, now you bring in Kenyan Drake, you're living and dying off of touchdowns. Josh Jacobs has become the closest thing that a running back can be to a tight end, which is if he scores, you have a good game. If he doesn't score, you have a mediocre at best game. And Kenyan Drake, to me, and obviously this is a newer signing, we'll dive more into this, looked like the guy I'd trust more at the goal line, and that's horrible for Josh Jacobs. Now, the question is he going to be able to score without a center, without a tackle? Last I checked, I think they only have 2 guards and a right tackle at this point. So they have to fix that, and the market's getting thinner as we go. I don't know who's going to be blocking, but what I did like from Kenyan Drake, you're right, I didn't see the explosiveness. I didn't see the breakaway speed that you thought you were going to see, that you saw a lot in Miami when he got loose. But I saw a very efficient goal line back. And if that's the case and they saw what I saw in Vegas, Josh Jacobs is in a lot of trouble. He wasn't in my top 20 coming in. I took a lot of flack for that before the Drake signing. Now I don't know how he could be in anybody's top 20. This is a mess, but what Kenyan Drake does well, I think it bodes really poorly for Josh Jacobs this year.
We were talking about how Josh Jacobs coming out of college was a great catcher, pass catcher. And they talked about how they're going to use him as a pass catcher, and they didn't. But this could be the opportunity where they use him as a pass catcher. I'm looking at the goal line carries, and honestly, it's sketchy at best when it comes to his conversion rate at the goal line. It's not great. It's not great, Bob, especially without an offensive line now. So, are you sitting there and thinking that Kenyan Drake will be draftable as a running back 2? We'll start out with you, John.
As a fantasy RB2?
Fantasy RB2.
Drake, no. I look at him as like a backup, 0 RB. Maybe he's going 7th, 8th round, 9th round, where you're kind of upside 0 RB guys are. If there's an injury to Jacobs, now you have an RB2. Maybe a little bit better if his foot's better and he's got some of that burst. But with Jacobs there and them splitting that workload, I wouldn't draft him earlier than that, the middle rounds.
I actually like that 0 RB take a lot. That's a great take. Where are you valuing, Mike? Where are you valuing Kenyan Drake?
I think John nailed it. I would say 7th or 8th round. He's going to be a high-end, type play if Jacobs gets hurt. I think realistically you put him probably a little below Lombardi Lenny at this point. He's going to be below that Fournette category, but I have him above, let's say, a Tariq Cohen, especially with Damian Williams going there now. In that grouping of let's swing for the fences, Drake, I think, is a guy I would take in that 7th round because the upside is there, because the potential for scoring is there. But other than that, you can't go into a season unless you are absolutely stacked everywhere else. I'm talking Travis Kelce, Devontae Adams. You have to have every one of your skill positions set if you're going to roll him out there in RB2 and expect to win. He's just not going to be week in and week out bankable. He's just not that player anymore.
No, I like that. And obviously we've been talking about the offensive line for the Raiders. We've been, harping on that for a minute. Opposite of what the Raiders are doing, the Chargers are building their offensive line. Last year they traded for Turner. They signed Bulaga, right? Then we have this year they go out and get Lindsley from the Packers, who graded out as the best run blocking center, I believe. And then Mike, I don't know if you can actually help me pronounce this name because it's so close to yours, but I believe it's Feiler. Feiler. He played the guard for the Steelers.
Yep.
So is Eckler's stock going to be undervalued in 2021, with him coming off the injury and him having a brand new offensive line and this offensive line focused on, just being as robust as possible?
I think his value, it's always a little bit depressed because people don't believe that he's the clear RB1 there, and he's going to get the sort of workload that you want out of a guy you're drafting, I guess, in the late 1st round or early 2nd round. I think that's probably the expectation that I have for him. But you just look at his targets, 6.5 per game last year, and that included 2 of his first 4 where he only had 1 target. One of them was due to injury, and that first game was with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. So, with Herbert, 4, 11, 16, 9, 9, 4, 3, 7 were his targets. And then if you're adding in now a really good offensive line and he's getting 10 carries a game because he averaged 11.6, he's going to be back in that PPR RB1 mix for sure.
Yes, I love that.
And you've got Justin Jackson there, and you've got Joshua Kelly. Kelly didn't pan out the way that a lot of us thought he would, as that maybe that RB2 there. That maybe I thought both of those guys. I thought Eckler and another player were going to have value there, and it just sort of was hit or miss with Kelly. And then Balaj came in and just ruined my year. But Kelly and Jackson are going to be fighting for that role, but I think neither one of them really stood out to me, and so it's going to be a lot of Eckler. But maybe not the 25 touches that you want, but if he gets 18 to 20 high leverage, high yield touches, he's in good shape.
Did anybody ever think that Austin Eckler could become more efficient than what he has been in the past?
Yeah, I mean, with a better offensive line, you might see that.
He might. I mean, they've never had an offensive line, which also leads off, to dump offs and quick passes as well. But I still believe that could happen now in the running game more so in the passing game. Mike, where are you sitting on Eckler, man? Like, let's start with Josh Jacobs. Is he above or below Josh Jacobs for you?
Way above, way above. That's actually not even close to me. When you look at Austin Eckler, do you want to hear redraft or dynasty? Which way are we thinking here?
It doesn't matter to me. If you want to stay both, you stay both.
Yeah. So for dynasty right now, I had him at running back 16, probably even leaning a little higher for him. My big worry in dynasty is just how long he's going to last. I actually like him more in the lower touch category. I think 18 to 20 efficient touches is about the right number. So I have him right about 15 right now. And probably in redraft, I might even consider him higher. I think he's pushing into that top 11, top 10 range. I think if this offense clicks and he's the motor that makes it go, he could absolutely blow up this year. I saw our friend Matt did a thread on Eckler compared to Kamara, and what he wasn't saying was Kamara is better. I mean, that was a given, but the cost of acquisition, Eckler is a far greater investment. I loved the thread. I'll retweet it out after this so everyone can read it. But I think Eckler really is that Kamara light that you can get 3 rounds later. Of course, he gets hurt when I have him in the fishbowl and was banking on him being that guy last year. But I think this year, what he does, what he is, especially as John alluded to, the targets that he got once Herbert came in, it was basically the Eckler and Allen show every time they were on the field. Hunter Henry's gone. Jared Cook's not going to be a big target hog. He's just not that guy. I love him this year.
Yeah, I'm on board. I raised him up my rankings after, seeing the people that they added. So I'm very interested in that. Now, when we sit there and we look at, Carson back in Seattle, Marlon Mack back in Indy, Houston now has Johnson, Ingram, and Lindsey. Don't really know what's happening there. Is there anything you guys want to talk about in this section, or just want to, be like, okay, it is what it is?
Well, I think Carson's going to be drafted later than he should. Seattle was a great landing spot for him. I mean, it's not really a landing spot, I guess, when it's going back to his team, but really, how they're going to use him. Carlos Hyde moved on. He had a career low 11.8 carries last year, but he had a career high in catches because they got him more involved as a receiver. And I think if it's Penny backing him up instead of Hyde, he might get back to where he's 13, 14 carries a game, and then maybe he keeps some of that receiving role. And then Mack back to Indy kind of bothers me for Jonathan Taylor, because it just seems like they are not wanting him to be the bell cow that the fantasy community wants him to be. They didn't feed him those types of touches until they had to, and they want to use Nyheim Hines. They want to use Jordan Wilkins if Jordan Wilkins was being effective, and now they're bringing Mack back. And that worries me a little bit. I moved Taylor out of my top 5, and he's still an RB1, like a fringe RB1 for me. But, unless I hear I mean, even Mac came out after and said that they're going to spread the touches around, after he signed. So that's worrisome what they're telling him. If you want Taylor to get 20 plus touches a game, which is what I think the fantasy community would like. And then Houston, just stay away. Like, that is a disaster it's a disaster for David Johnson, number one. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but maybe you could say, all right, David Johnson's going to get 25 touches a game or 20 to 25 touches a game if he can handle it. Then they sign Ingram. And I think they didn't think that Lindsey would be available, and they ended up signing Lindsey. Like, they signed Ingram right away.
Is this more dysfunctional than the last regime? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, we thought Bill O'Brien was the problem. I don't know if that was the case.
Oh, God.
I would just completely stay away from. I mean, if Deshaun Watson is in the clear and somehow is the quarterback, then maybe there's some interesting things about this offense. But if you're, looking at Tyrod Taylor and this three-headed monster in the backfield, and Brandon Cooks is your number one and Cobb's your number two, then it's pretty ugly.
I had the numbers up. I think Houston is leading the NFL in free agent signings, and none of them have been great free agent signings. It's like just all over the place. It's crazy.
You'd think they'd at least hit one good one, right? Actually, I think the Lindsey signing is fine. I mean, from a value standpoint, he's a good player. He's not a dual threat that David Johnson is. Lindsey should be a good pass catcher just looking at him, but he's not. He has trouble with his hands, and they didn't use him much as a receiver in Denver. And he could certainly win that job. I saw somebody asking in the chat, but I think David Johnson is the presumed starter, and they're just going to rotate Lindsey and Ingram in whenever they need to.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think that you hit the nail on the head that they didn't think Lindsey would be available. My big question is Mark Ingram on the roster week one now that Lindsey became available? If he's not, at least there's touches there. Right. And sometimes when you're looking in that 9th, 10th round, at this point with running back, you're looking for someone to touch the ball. I agree. I think Lindsey, it's going to be a 1A situation. I think Lindsey is the 1A. I do agree. Johnson is the better running back when he's healthy. David Johnson is an incredibly talented running back. So I think he gets the touches. Not enough that you're ever going to want to play them, to be quite honest. But I think Ingram I almost put to the side as they signed him to be Johnson's backup, and then a better backup became available. I'm not sure how much guarantees there are in that contract, but I'd be shocked if he actually made the roster at this point.
I just looked it up. It's $500K guaranteed and 2.5. So
yeah, so you can move on from that pretty easily. And I think they might. And honestly, with the veteran, my hope would be they do it sooner rather than later, John, because you give them a chance to maybe catch on somewhere else. So we should have our answer, somewhere right after the draft. Go ahead.
No, it's all you.
No, the other guy we were talking about was Carson. I think the deal they signed him to, the numbers they gave him, and honestly his age, I think what you're going to see is they're going to beat the brakes off of Chris Carson for as long as he can handle it. So I do expect him to get a large amount of touches. I think if this signals anything, it's that all the Penny Truthers and DJ Dallas Truthers, they don't want those guys to be their running back. Chris Carson is Pete Carroll's guy. I expect him to go back to high volume, and I agree with you, John. He'll be drafted lower than he should. I mean, he is a low-end RB1 who you can get for mid to low RB2 price because he's not flashy, he's not sexy, whatever you want to call it, but he gets the job done in an offense that literally is perfect for him. The only place he could have gone that I think would have been better was we were looking at Miami because the amount of red zone touches their running backs get. But Seattle's dang near perfect, and Pete Carroll might be the perfect coach for him. I have gotten Chris Carson, to give you an idea, in the 2 startup drafts I did, they're actually dispersal drafts. I got him for, I think, $6 and $7 respectively in leagues where Cam Akers is going for 48. Not saying that he's Cam Akers, but when you look at that difference, that's insane. You're getting a wide receiver 1 and Chris Carson for Cam Akers value. And I think Carson, at least when you look at the next 1.5 to 2 years, will have roughly the same, if not better output than Cam Akers. So if you're looking at that small window to win, Chris Carson's your guy at cost of acquisition by a significant margin for me.
Real quick, just to adjust the Houston thing, because I started cracking up, right? I'm looking at stuff behind the scenes. I started laughing. I have to know, which I don't know why I'm laughing, because they've signed 24 24 free agents. The most expensive contract that they dish out was to the punter.
It might be a tank year for Houston.
Yeah,
God.
I mean, they've secured the 101, haven't they? I think already
got their punter. They got their punter, guys.
They're just trying to fill out the roster with the minimum guys.
I don't think I've ever seen that. I'm a Washington. I've grown up in Washington football, and this is just absurd to me. Like, this is something Washington would do, except for they would hand out as many big contracts as they could without being little ones. This is crazy. Like, to not have, any kind of like consensus, like, build, like, without having any kind of nucleus and just trying to piece together everything. It's a little absurd, but I feel like they're putting on, a show. I feel like they're just doing everything, waiting for who's the head coach now to end up running his course and then end up handing it off to McCown. So let's go ahead and let's hop back on to – oh, wait. I do want to know, does Jamal Williams hurt Swift at all? He's the 4th highest paid running back in free agency this year.
Yeah, I think so. I moved Swift down when Williams signed. I've watched Williams in Green Bay the last, 2 or 3 seasons. He's strong, versatile back. He's not going to break off 50-yard runs, but he gets what's blocked and more. He's a fun guy. They're going to love him in terms of the fans are going to love him. But he's also can really catch the ball. He's really a natural pass catcher. So he basically duplicates what DeAndre Swift does. And you'd like to just see Swift with the job, but I don't think that the Lions ever really wanted him to be the bell cow. You'd like to have, Kerryon Johnson behind him sort of running ineffectively and not being great. And then they're forced to run Swift out there, but you have Williams as the backup. That's going to limit Swift's upside. I still love Swift. I have him in a keeper league, and I have to decide between him and James Robinson, and it's not an easy decision because it's PPR, and I don't know. It's a tough one. But Jamal Williams arriving certainly didn't help.
Mike, real quick, just to, I want your opinion on this, but I want to know which one affected you more. Was it Marlon Mack re-signing or Jamal Williams signing with Lions? Which one lowered the value of that individual more?
Jamal Williams by a considerable amount.
Oh, wow.
I think that Marlon Mack, given the injury that he has, given the deal, it's a 1-year deal, I think that he's going to play more of the Wilkins role. So I'm not really worried about Marlon Mack hurting Taylor too much. I just think it'd be irresponsible to give a running back a large workload coming off of an Achilles injury. This isn't an ACL. This isn't an easy fix. This is something that I think will hinder him for at least 1 more year. So I'm very worried. I'm not really worried about Marlon Mack taking a ton of touches. I think he'll take a backup's amount. Now, Jamal Williams, I went back and forth on. I love Swift, as you know. I'm a huge Swift guy. And you know how it goes. But what I wonder is, would you rather Jamal Williams or would you rather Bull at the goal line, someone who's going to take those touches? I went back and forth. But yeah, I think John's right. Williams is a very capable back, and I love Jamal Williams as a person, man. How could you not love that guy?
He feels like SpongeBob.
What's that?
He feels like SpongeBob.
He does. And Olaf, when it snows, I feel bad that he's in a dome. So he can't get that love anymore. But yeah, I think it hurts Swift. I didn't drop him in my dynasty rankings. I think that would be short-sighted. But in redraft, does he take a step or two back? Yeah, I could see that. I don't think it's a huge hindrance to him. In long term, I still think he is an absolute stud. But in the short term, yeah, this hurts his upside because you wanted him to get all those catches. You wanted him to get all those touches. And if he's going to come out in passing downs, which why else would you sign Williams if he wasn't going to? Yeah, that definitely hurts him a little bit.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's hop on to tight ends. Because I don't think anybody – do you guys want to talk about Peterson or Gore or Bell or Gurley or Dare Ungubowale?
Nope.
No, neither do I. All right, so let's go ahead and hop on to tight ends because – John, you actually called in one of your episodes. I remember that you called Johnny Smith to the Patriots. And it's something where the Patriots, I feel like, have always wanted to add a tight end. They just have not hit on their tight ends. So I'm sure you were stoked on that, but then Hunter Henry came along. What does this do to Johnny Smith's value? What does this do to Hunter Henry's value? Is this the worst thing that could have ever happened?
I like both players, and I wanted to see them in featured roles, not together. So for a run heavy team, with sort of suspect quarterback play. Yeah, this is. I mean, it was a fantasy nightmare. It was. I love Smith. I didn't think that Tennessee used him enough, and if they had used him more, it would have been fantastic. I thought he was a breakout candidate last year. I think he finished fine. Like his numbers were fine. I think it was just you're comparing everybody to Travis Kelce and Darren Waller, and anybody that didn't have them was upset about tight end last year. So yeah, them both going there, they kind of cancel each other out. I think Henry is the better tight end right now, and probably would be the one I would draft if I had to. But I'm basically going to be avoiding a lot of this New England offense because unless they make a quarterback change or they come out and say we're going to throw the ball twice as much as we did last year, then there's just not going to be a big enough pie to support Henry, Smith, Aguilar, Bourne, whoever else they want to run out there. I mean, Jacoby Myers was decent for him last year. Edelman might be back. So it's just it's causing this to be, as opposed to Jonnu being somebody I might target in the 8th to 10th round. It's just a system that I would just avoid with Henry healthy in there.
Mike, how you feeling, man? You're a Patriots fan.
Yeah, so for Patriots fan in me, I like Jonas Smith a lot. I love the signing. For fantasy, it's Hunter Henry. I think he's the guy who, if you're going to take a swing, he's the guy to do that. John mentioned Edelman. The whispers are already out there that he's not going to be ready for week 1, and it's March. I think that kind of tells you all you need to know about Julian Edelman. I'd be shocked if he steps back on the field, which I think makes Hunter Henry the de facto slot guy. I think you're going to see N'Keal Harry moving on, possibly to Washington, possibly to San Francisco, where the rumors out there right now. So I think if you look at it that way, the offense starts to make a little bit more sense. And again, this is all predicated on my belief that Cam Newton is not the quarterback. If Cam Newton's quarterback in this team, completely avoid. But when you look at who's going to be best suited fantasy-wise, target-wise, and honestly, who is Bill Belichick's style of player, it's Hunter Henry. So if you're going to go with one, you really want to take a swing, he's the guy. But it would require a Garoppolo or a quarterback change to really unlock his value. I would actually like Hunter Henry as a sneaky low-end tight end 1 with Garoppolo under center. I think that could happen. I think Jonnu Smith they're going to use in a multitude of different ways, but not enough touches that's going to happen. But it's all predicated on the quarterback. And like John said, if they don't get one that comes in, that would signal that they're looking at this becoming a passing offense, then yeah, I'm a complete avoid as well.
All right, so you guys both said Hunter Henry, right? Or did you say John?
I said Hunter Henry over Jonnu at this point. I mean, the other issue today is they re-signed James White.
Yep.
So
It's another
4 targets off the table. Yeah.
Oh, God, that's so terrible. I have so many shares of Johnny Smith. I'm destroyed inside.
It's good for regular football, though. As a fan, I'm stoked. They're getting a bunch of weapons. I mean, I don't know how they're going to use them, but dang, they've restocked quick.
I mean, Cam Newton did it in Carolina when he had a set of weapons, did support a number of fantasy players,
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the Cam Newton we still have. And he also had COVID last year. I don't remember exactly when. Was it midseason? And I think he was talking about how it knocked him out, and he might have had that long COVID where he was, brain fog. And it looked like it. So
he also said he didn't catch it. He just had it at first, and then all of a sudden.
Oh no, he caught it at the Natick Mall. He went shopping like a champion that day, and it was actually, if you remember, it was right after the Seattle game where that offense clicked. I want to say it was like a 42-40 game or something insane. It was that primetime game, and Cam Newton was a goal line carry away from winning the game. He missed the read, but they almost took out Seattle that week on what was a high scoring offense. So when he got COVID, I want to say, John, I think it was week 3 or 4. Absolutely, that changed everything. He came back. He looked lethargic. He looked like everything was off. And let's not forget that he was just a very short time removed from a shoulder injury. So we are going to see a Cam Newton 1 year away from COVID and now a year and a half away from a shoulder injury. If we could get vintage Cam, absolutely he could unlock this offense. And I think, honestly, and maybe this is the fan in me, maybe this is the optimist in me, if they don't go with another quarterback, John, kind of like you said, you would talk yourself into Antonio Brown as a Packers fan. I will talk myself into Cam Newton being 2018 Cam Newton, and you will see me on Twitter, raising the flags and saying how great he's going to be. Because I just think when you look at what Belichick's doing, he's putting together the pieces of an offense. And the best thing I can say about our coach, as arrogant as he might be, he's not stupid. If he puts all of these pieces in the hands of Cam, I have to think he knows something we don't, and maybe we do see week 3 Cam Newton, which was a pretty damn good quarterback.
Yeah, he started off strong, and I just wanted to point out that he had 177 yards passing per game last year. His career numbers were 226. The yards per attempt was 7.2 versus his career of 7.3. So efficiency-wise, he wasn't that too far off of that. His completion percentage was a bit higher than his career. It was 65.8 compared to 60.1 for his career. But 8 touchdowns and 10 interceptions in 15 games. I just find that season amazing. But it was a weird year. And if he did have like long COVID and was just out of it and wasn't functioning at a high level, it's hard. I would assume it's hard to play NFL quarterback when you are, I got my vaccine today and I'm having a tough time with this, staying clear on this pod. I'm forgetting names. So I can't imagine having COVID and trying to read a defense and decide who to throw the ball to. But the bottom line here is they've added a ton of talent to this passing game. And if Cam is anything what we saw earlier in his career, then he might actually be a value and he might end up being the starter for this Patriots team.
No, that's the reality of the situation. I mean, when we sit there and we look at it, like Cam Newton could absolutely explode. And we saw that regression throughout the season, something we don't like to see. But let's go ahead and play who would you rather have. You can incorporate, draft capital if you like. Let's go over these next few people. I mean, unless you guys want to bring up Hunter Henry and Johnny Smith again.
Nope.
Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and talk about Will Disley or Gerald Everett, who are both on the Seahawks now. They're saying that Will Disley is a starter, or at least they're assuming he's going to be. So which one would you rather have?
For me, they gave Everett $6 million. I think they wanted him to be. I think they want him to be their tight end of the future, and they're going to make him earn it. But the Seahawks have for a long time rotated their tight ends, so you're probably going to see these guys both at 60-70% snaps. And I would prefer Everett, I think, to Disley, but Disley's going to be dirt cheap.
Mike?
Everett, I'm going to go with the better athlete here. And honestly, yeah, Disley will be cheaper, but they're both going to be pretty cheap. Like where you're getting him, you're still talking a tight end too. I don't tend to roster 3 tight ends. So I'll still go with Everett. I think John hit the nail on the head. They gave him the money to be the starter. He is the athlete. If you look at his metrics, they're through the roof. This is what we've all been waiting for. Everyone has been pining for Gerald Everett, was hoping for a situation like this. And we finally have it. I don't look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm thrilled he's there, and I'm picking him up for cheap everywhere I can. For anyone not paying attention, I've been grabbing him across the board. Everett's been a guy I've been heavily investing in.
Wait, so you don't think that Gerald Everett's going to be the next tight end 1 that everybody's talking about, trying to boost up?
No, I don't think he's going to get to that tight end 1, but where you're getting him, in a 12th, 13th round, I mean, dang, he's in that glut of if he scores a touchdown that week, he might be, tight end 10 on the week, 9 on the week, or he might be 15. It's a hot pile of mess. So I always look for opportunity and athleticism, and Everett seems to have both right now. So why wouldn't you be looking at a guy like that? I will tell you, for tight ends that change teams, I would take Gerald Everett over Jared Cook right now.
That's not bad. I mean, we do have Jared Cook coming up, so why not just bring him up right now? We have Jared Cook or Donald Parham, who's a big topic of the dynasty industry. I don't know if John actually gets involved with Donald Parham conversation or not.
I'm like when the hurricane hits the coast, and I'm the northernmost town where I see the winds and like, okay, this is happening, but I'm not exactly sure why everybody's freaking out about it. I do remember them like lining him up in the red, like at the goal line, and just throwing him fade after fade. And I was confused by the whole process, but they obviously like him as a receiver there. And I was, I think I tweeted out Donald Parham's season 313 to 318 or whatever, rest in peace when they signed Cook, because Cook is still good. If you look at his numbers when he had a capable quarterback, Drew Brees is on the field. He was a tight end one. He's, averaging 40, 50 yards per game, half a touchdown, 4 or 5 catches. So I think they signed him to come in and continue to fill that role. He's still very athletic, even at his age. It's a pretty good 1-2 punch, but it does kill Parham's upside. You're not going to be able to count on him to get you tight end 2 numbers, in the later rounds.
I don't think Parham's that young either. I mean, obviously he got drafted in the NFL. He ended up playing the XFL for a year. Are we all looking up the same thing? He's 20. I guess he's 24. He's a lot younger than I thought he was, but
he's still young enough. He won't be 24 till kickoff, right? He's still 23.
Yep. Yeah. He's still 23. That's interesting. I still got to lean Jerry Cook at this point, but I'm still holding on to my Donald Parham shares. I'm a big Donald Parham fan from the XFL.
I mean, Cook's not going to come be the tight end there for 4 years. He bounces around, and he'll probably, 1 year, and then he'll go somewhere else and ruin somebody else's upside.
All right, for their value where they're being drafted, Evan Ingram or Kyle Rudolph. I know it's a weird question, but at the same time, at Evan Ingram and his price, what is going to be drafted this year? 7th round, 8th round, probably?
Somewhere in that range, maybe even
last year went 5th round.
6th. Yeah, he might be 6th at this point.
I want to apologize for the sun coming in and just crushing your cameras, or my camera.
I'm jealous you have sun.
Look, it looks nice.
Yeah,
it looks like you got a nice
like you have a halo. I'm coming to the light.
I'm coming down from heaven to tell you about Evan Ingram.
Oh my God, no!
They gave Kyle Rudolph a lot of money, so I think it was a pretty hefty contract, and he's got a foot injury of some sort. He's got to have surgery. I can't imagine that he'd become the primary receiving tight end over Evan Ingram. I'm not really interested in either player right now.
All right. And then, of course, why is the answer to all these questions? Wait, or Mike, do you want to answer that question before I go on to the next one?
No. I mean, I don't want to hear them. Yeah. I legitimately don't want it's Saquon or bust with the Giants right now, I guess, right? Yeah, I'm not interested. I mean, one can't run, one can't catch. I'm good. If you put them together, they'd be spectacular. If you could Frankenstein the two, that would be great. But which one do you want? The one who can't get open or the one who can't catch? And I'm good with either. I'm fine.
John, you're never going to escape the sunlight. It's coming.
Yeah, I was trying to fix it, but it's not happening. So you said what was the last question?
I was about to start. I didn't finish it. Yeah.
Okay.
Why is the answer all these Jacob Hollister to the Bills?
Oh, jeez. Stop it.
Instead of that, let's look at the players that benefited from guys moving. Irv Smith with the Vikings.
Of course.
I have him as a low end tight end 1. Tyler Higbee with the Rams with Everett gone. These tight end 2 rankings are suddenly very interesting. Mm-hmm. And then Anthony Ferkser with the Titans, taking over for Janu. Maybe it's a little bit of wishing there, but if I'm in my FFP PC best balls, I'm definitely going to be getting some Ferkser. I'm maybe not looking at him as a tight end 1.
Yeah.
But he's going to have some spike weeks. He had 100+ yards against Houston, touchdowns or 1 touchdown, I think.
Yeah,
so.
I've been sneaking $1 Ferkser in every draft I can, just because why not? In this wasteland of a position, obviously you have Troutman and Komet as well as players that are benefiting from people leaving. I honestly can't tell them apart, so I tend to go with which one has the lowest cost of acquisition. That's kind of been how I'm playing it, because any of them could step up in a given week, but Ferkser seems to be the one I end up with the most because people aren't even looking that way right now.
Don't forget about Blake Jarwin in Dallas, coming back from the knee injury. Gave him a big contract. He's playing with Dak Prescott. I was really high on him last year, and had to pour one out when he got hurt.
Yeah, but what do you think, John? Though I mean, I thought Schultz filled in better than I thought he would. Is that a concern that they're both going to be there?
Maybe a slight concern, but I was really high on Jarwin heading in. I think Schultz just sort of was catching the ball and falling down. Maybe I have to go back and look at his tape, but he wasn't making stuff happen after the catch. I thought Blake Jarwin was just an athletic. I was just so excited for him to be the starter there and to play 80, 90% of the snaps and get all those Witten targets so he could show Witten how to produce yards at a younger age.
John, I honestly think that oh, hey, he's back. I honestly think that other picture, like right now, should be, if you can get a halo somehow, actually, that should be a profile picture for Twitter.
Let's just blind everyone as I
was like, I can't hear you. The sun's in my eyes. No, but
that's better.
It's awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. I'm excited to see where this year ends up. I'm excited to see your rankings, and what you produce this upcoming year.
The Never Too Early rankings are already up on the site if you want to look at them. And they're for half PPR, and I've been updating them as free agency continues. And I actually moved them around a little bit as we were talking because I started thinking about them a little bit more and deciding who I would take when and here and there. And I'm just looking at these tight end 2 rankings, and it's interesting. So take a look.
Where can we get those?
You can go to 444.com, and it's under. If it's just under rankings, it should be Never Too Early rankings there. And I don't know if they're behind the paywall or if they're free, but you can check and see.
It's 444, right? Just so that everybody knows where to find them. Obviously, it's a company that's been tremendous with their progression throughout fantasy football, and a company I've been following for a long time. And I appreciate you coming on. Like, this has been a blast.
This was good. This was a fun time. Good job hosting, and good analysis. It was some things that made me think. So.
I appreciate it, man. Anytime we can make people think, I'm down. So let everybody know where to find you once again. Plug yourself, and then we'll move on to Mike, and then we'll get out of here.
444_John. You can find me at 444.com and check out the Most Accurate Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, whatever. On there, we're doing weekly podcasts right now. I'm not on there every time, but once we get into the season, I'm doing at least one a week. So check it out.
Mike?
I'm not doing much. I'm just kind of hanging out on Twitter.
Posting kids in helmets and saying it's Rondell Moore.
we might as well tell everybody. I'm on Twitter at Daddy's Home FF. If you take anything that I say seriously on there between now and April when nothing actually happens, I'm sorry for you. It's mostly jokes. Like when I say that Mac Jones has a 42-inch vertical if he was 5'5", it's a joke. I'm only kidding, guys. Because realistically, this is the time of year that I find overreactions hilarious, and the sarcasm tends to come out. You'll see me get back into analysis as things actually change in the football world leading up to April. You can find me guest hosting for the most part. As Chase knows, I took most of the off-season off to kind of catch my breath, but I'll be back here during the season, giving you starts and sits every Wednesday at 8. And honestly, check out everybody at fantasyintervention.com. Those guys make the rest of us look smart by their analysis. Give them a follow. We have some great young writers out there, and I'm learning from them every day, the things they're coming up with, the visuals they're looking at. For an old man like me that has been playing fantasy football since we used to have to write it on paper and mail it, so you didn't actually know if you won until Thursday when you got a letter from the commissioner, seeing the way that they're bringing the game to the next level has been outstanding. So I'm pretty useless, but the group over there is definitely worth a follow.
Hey, and we're always looking to expand. Fantasyintervention.com. Go over there, you hit join our circle. We have our writing standards up as to what we expect from our writers. We have a list of other podcasts that are looking for new writers that are trying to train writers. And of course, you can apply to be part of our team and actually learn how to write. We spend a lot of time. We spend a lot of time training our people, of how to write. And it will accept anybody as long as you're willing to learn. Of course, we can't accept everybody, but we try to accept, some of the people that make us think, as John said. Listen, we appreciate you guys for listening. You can find us at joinourcircle_. Once again, that's joinourcircle_. We have a bunch of stuff coming out, and I'm really excited for it. So make sure you guys go check out fantasyintervention.com. You guys can find me at FF_intervention on Twitter. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life.